Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a Basque cheesecake, and this is what it looks like. As you can see, it has a beautiful caramelized top and bottom crust, yet inside it is light and airy, almost mousse-like in texture. It's absolutely delicious. You can serve it warm from the oven, room temperature, cold. It's just great. So the first thing that you will need to do is to preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 218 degrees Celsius. Now that's a pretty high temperature to bake a cheesecake, and that is why that crust is so nice and golden brown. So what you will need is a 9-inch springform pan, 2 pieces, with 3-inch sides. So that would be 23 by 7.5 centimeters. So just clip that in. And then I'm just going to lightly spray it with a non-stick spray. You could just lightly oil it as well. And then you will need 2. These are 12 by 16 inch, which is 30 by 40 centimeter pieces of parchment paper. Now we're going to line it like this way to make sure it's really lined well. So it's kind of hard to get the parchment paper into a round pan. So what I do, a little noisy, is I just crumble it into a ball, kind of get it all wrinkled. It makes it a little easier to fit it in. Now don't worry, it doesn't have to be smooth, because this type of cheesecake, the sides are supposed to be kind of rough looking. It's a very rustic looking cheesecake, so don't labor over it too much. Just try to get it fitted in as best as you can. So once you get it one way, then same thing. Sorry, it's so noisy. If you have headphones on, it might be a little noisy. And do it the other way. And you want it to come up a little high on the sides. So that's good. So, to make our cheesecake, if you have a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer. So, the first thing you will need is 2 pounds, which is 900 grams of full-fat cream cheese. And have your cream cheese at room temperature. Yes, this is a large cheesecake, and you probably don't want to be on a diet when you're making this and eating this. This is for a special occasion. So just put all that cream cheese. But this freezes really well, so just keep that in mind. If you don't eat it all, you can always freeze some of it. And then I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of pure vanilla extract. If you don't want a vanilla flavor in this cheesecake, you can just leave that out. And then you will also need, I have in a separate bowl, 1 1/4 cups, which is 250 grams of granulated white sugar. Actually, mine's kind of not white, it's off-white, and that's because it's a natural cane sugar. You can use either type. Now, I'm going to add the zest of 1 lemon. I think the original, kind of whoever invented this, did not put lemon zest. So if you want to leave that out, you can. But when I do a cheesecake, because there's so much dairy and it is quite rich, I find just a little bit of lemon zest kind of offsets that and really highlights all the flavors. But if you don't want, like I said, just leave it out. So lemon. It's best to use organic, but either way, make sure you really wash your lemon. And then I'm using one of these microplanes. You could just use your box grater on the fine part, and then we're just going to grate that. I'm going to put this into the sugar. And the reason I do that is once you grate it, it kind of clumps. And you don't want a clump of lemon zest in your cheesecake. So if I put it into my sugar, one, it flavors the sugar, and two, I can get rid of all the, can kind of separate it a little more. Okay. And keep your lemon. You can always use juice for something else. And then I'm just using a fork just to kind of get rid of those lumps. Okay. And then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon, like 3 grams of a fine kosher salt. You could use a table salt as well. Just put that in there. Along with 3 tablespoons, 27 grams of all-purpose flour, plain flour. I like a little flour in this cheesecake. There's a lot of liquid. It thickens it a bit. Plus, the flour will prevent it from, like sometimes your cheesecake after you store it can get like a little wet, or what we call weeping. And a little bit of flour just helps prevent that. Especially in this one that has, not only have the cream cheese, got lots of eggs, and we even have quite a bit of heavy cream. Not diet food. So a little bit of flour really helps. So I'm just gonna dump that in there. Now the thing when you're making really most cheesecakes, you don't want to incorporate a lot of air because, you know, you just mainly want to just beat everything together until nice and smooth. So I would say, you know, you want your mixer speed medium, low. And what I'm going to do is just beat until this gets all mixed together and our cream cheese is really smooth. So that's why it's important to start with your cream cheese at room temperature rather than cold from the fridge. Okay, so as you're mixing this, you will probably have to stop a few times to scrape down the sides and bottom of your bowl because cream cheese can be a little sticky. But if you have it at room temperature, which, you know, in my kitchen, it took about 2 hours to get it to room temperature. So, you know, depending on the temperature of your kitchen, it can take a while. But it's so much easier if it's at room temperature. So once you have that done, we are going to add 5 large eggs and have your eggs at room temperature. Now 5 large eggs out of the shell is 250 grams. So if you want to weigh your eggs. So what I'm going to do is hopefully just pour one in, one at a time, and beat it in. Again, low speed. Once one egg's beaten in, yeah, the next, till they're all in there. Okay, so again, I'm going to actually take my paddle off here so I can give this a really good stir. Because you want to scrape both this, you know, the sides and the bottom, because you know cream cheese is so sticky and it tends to stick to the bottom of the bowl, and we don't want that. We want it all thoroughly mixed in. Okay, I think that's good. Scrape that off. So, only one ingredient left. I have here 1 cup, which is 240 milliliters or 240 grams of heavy whipping cream. That's cream with about a 35 to 40% butterfat content. And we're just gonna pour that in. You know why it's going to taste so good. It's just wonderful. Okay, I'm just going to beat this in medium-low speed. Okay, so we are done. If you've made the New York cheesecake recipe on the site, you know, this is quite similar, but it has a lot more cream. So it's a little more liquidy. And that's why, there's a couple reasons, that's why it's going to be more soft. You know, a New York cheesecake is really quite dense in texture. This is going to be a little lighter because we have the added cream. Plus we're gonna, like the difference too is like a New York cheesecake, a lot of cheesecakes you bake like at a fairly low temperature so the moisture is slowly evaporated. Here we're gonna hit it with really like high heat, 425 Fahrenheit, 218 Celsius. And that is why you can see this beautiful. We're not, like a New York cheesecake has a graham cracker crust, right? You can see we're not doing any crust because that high heat is actually going to bake the top and the bottom and even a bit of the sides. And that like forms this caramelized like a crust. So we don't need to even bother with like a cookie crust or anything. So pour this in as best as I can here. The difference in texture. Some people like this Basque cheesecake to be, some recipes or have even more heavy cream so that when you bake it off, it can be like almost like a molten chocolate cake. You know, the outside is kind of firm, but when you cut into it, it almost runs. It's so the texture, and some like it more like this is more like a mousse. I like it a little firmer. You know, it's not quite, I think the original recipes, it's very soft. You know, maybe it's because I live in the States and I'm so used to a New York cheesecake. I like mine a little firm. I like it soft, very like mousse-like, but a little more than, I don't like it to run. But you can vary the baking time if you want it a little softer than how I like it, and you'll see at the end what it looks like. So what we're going to do, I did put my springform pan on a larger baking sheet. It makes it easier to get it in and out. And then I do like to rotate the pan front to back about halfway through to get more even baking. So I'm going to say about 40 to 45 minutes. Really time is only one factor here. You don't just set your timer to 40 minutes and forget about it. No, when the timer goes, that's it. You want to look at your cheesecake. You want the top to be a deep brown caramelized color. That's one thing you're looking for. Two, the outside is set. The inside is going to be a little soft. And if I like gently shake the pan, it's going to jiggle. You don't want it to be like no movement. You want it to be a fairly good jiggle, and I'll show you that when I take it out of the oven. So I'm going to say between 40 and 45 minutes. Okay. So our cheesecake is done. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Kind of rustic looking. So put your pan on a wire rack, and then I'm just going to show you. See how much that's jiggling? That's how I like it. It's the outside, it's set, but it's got let me see. It'll be nice and soft inside. So I'm going to let this cool down to room temperature. You know, that's probably going to take 3 to 4 hours. Now, after about a half hour, and where my latch is, you can undo the latch, but just leave it like this, let it cool down, and when we come back, we will try a piece. So I let the cheesecake cool down completely to room temperature. Like I said before, probably it was about 4 hours. So we are ready to slice it. So just peel back your parchment. Although it kind of looks so cool with the parchment around it like that. Doesn't it? I just love the look of this cheesecake. And as you can see, the sides are kind of brown and they're all kind of jagged. That's the way it's supposed to be. So don't go, oh, it's not smooth. It's supposed to look like this. So to cut it, you need a sharp knife. I do have a glass of hot water. I'm going to put that in just to get my knife a little warm. It helps to cut the cheesecake to get a clean slice, or let's hope it does. So. And then you want to wipe your knife each time so you get a nice clean cut. Now, this is very rich tasting. You want to do it in small slices. But, you know, since it's a video, I'm doing a large cut. So I'm just going to make sure I got that. One more the other way. And we will see if it cooperates. You could use like a spatula. I'm just going to use hopefully my knife will work okay. There we go. Yeah. Look at that. Oh, it's soft, but not runny. Now, like I said, this cheesecake was invented at a restaurant in the Basque region of Spain. From what I'm just going by, I've never actually been there, but what I read is when they made it, it was really soft, almost to the point like I said, the molten chocolate cake. If that is what you want, like this one is set, it's still very soft, but then just bake it less than what I did. Like when jiggled, you'd probably want it even more loose than what I did, but I like it set like this. But you can see how soft it is. That is wonderful. It just kind of melts in your mouth. Now, this is at room temperature, so it's set, but still really soft. The thing about cheesecake is, depending on the temperature it's served at, the texture will be different. You can actually serve this like warm, then it would be even softer. Room temperature, it's a little more firm. If you put it into the refrigerator, it'll be even more firm and dense. But I like it at room temperature. I'll do another just taste test. It's just wonderful. You know, like typically a New York cheesecake, which is what I normally make, although I may be making this a lot more, has that cookie crust. And usually I like the graininess of the crust with the creamy smooth the cheesecake. But you know, I really like no crust. So you enjoy just that texture of the cheesecake. And because we baked it at such a high temperature, like you can see, it forms its own crust. So it just, to me, it's such a pretty looking. Now they say you can have this with a little glass of sherry. Haven't tried that, but hey, sounds good to me. But really, I just like it just like this. And you could store it in the refrigerator maybe 3-4 days. You can have it cold or you can bring it to room temperature. You can also freeze it. I've done that. It's perfect. So You must try this. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.